Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, which we have met. As you may have noticed, I am a honeybee. More specifically, I am a worker bee. Unfortunately, I am dead, so I'm going to be telling you my life story tonight. Now, as a honeybee, I'm part of a very high-energy bunch. Unfortunately, as I am dead, I had to drink 3 shots of espresso to get ready for this speech. I don't think bees drink coffee, but I think it's just because they haven't discovered it yet. So before I tell you, jump into my life story, I want to talk a little bit about what makes up a bee colony. So there are 3 castes of honeybee. There are the queen bee, and there's just one of them. She's the mother to all the bees. There are the worker bees, all of which are female, obviously. And then there are last and definitely least, there are the male drone bees. Now, we don't really like the male drone bees. We outnumber them about 100 to 1. They serve only one function. We don't like to talk about that. So my life as a honeybee began, as all honeybees' lives begin, as an egg. My mother, the queen bee, lays about 2,000 eggs per day. On this fateful day, I was one of those eggs. So on day 1, I was an egg. On day 3, I hatched into a nondescript white larva. On day 5, I was starting to get a little hungry, so the honeybees upstairs started to feed me just a little bit of honey. I got that first taste of that sweet nectar. I then continued to eat honey until day 13, where I became a pupa. So I went into the pupa stage, where my honey cell was covered over with beeswax. I was literally locked in my cell for a week while I transformed from a larva into the full-grown female worker bee you see before me now. On day 21, I emerged and was abruptly, without even so much as a good morning, put to work. My first job was to clean the cell that I had just crawled out of. Good morning, welcome to life. Please clean your cell. So for 2 whole days, all I did was clean the hive. My first job was house cleaning. On day 3, I was promoted to larvae feeder. Now this is a pretty exciting promotion for me, because now I got to feed all the larvae. Now keep in mind, 8 days ago, I was one of those larvae. So you can see how quick the turnover is. After that, after 10 days as a larvae feeder, I was promoted to a construction worker. Yes, honeybees have construction workers, so my job was to build and repair honeycomb. Now 5 days might not seem like a lot, but keep in mind, in the lifespan of a honeybee in the summer is about 6 weeks. And so that 5 days represented about 12% of my life as a construction worker. After that, I was promoted to a guard bee. As a guard bee, I did that for 3 days. My job was to protect the hive from malicious invaders. So we had wax moths, spiders, and bears. So you can see it's kind of a large task for such a small bee. So like many countries have mandatory military service, you can kind of think of it like that. Now, if I were to have a midlife crisis, that would have been the time to do it, because that was midlife for me. After 3 weeks, I was halfway through my life, and I had spent that amount of time as a house bee, and now I was progressing to my life as a field bee. So I would spend the next and rest of my life gathering resources for the hive. You could say I got my wings. 4 of them, actually. So. My job was to gather nectar, pollen, water, and propolis, which is a tree resin, and it's used for the aforementioned construction projects. Now, I flew fast. I flew up to 15 miles per hour. I would visit 100 flowers per trip. I was getting work done, taking care of business. One time I found a particularly abundant source of wildflowers. And so I had communicated this to the hive because it was way more than I could carry myself. And the way we communicate this is we actually do an elaborate dance which communicates the exact quantity, type, and location of the resource. Now, I'm not going to do the dance for you right now, but it is called the waggle dance, so you kind of get a visual. After I did my dance, the other honeybees do their own dance, and we actually decided what we would do about this new information, and we voted on it through another series of dances. And so if nothing else, honeybees are prodigious, methodical, and efficient decision makers. After that, I died. So you can see how it's just 6 weeks goes by so fast. But please don't mourn my death. The loss of a single honeybee is nothing. It's all about the hive. The betterment, continual betterment of the hive. Now, I did have my personal contribution, which was 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. That is what I created in my stand as a honeybee. Now, that might not seem like much to American human beings who consume 1.2 pounds of honey per year, which to me just seems like a ghastly amount. But keep in mind that 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey would be enough for me to fly for 9,000 miles. Kind of have to marvel at that efficiency. Last but not least, you might be wondering why this worker bee is standing before you wearing a suit. Well, if you're asking that question, then clearly you haven't been paying attention. I thought I made it abundantly clear that worker bees are all business.